Chrissy, what is Rainforest Connection?
Sure. Thanks so much, and I think your questions were great around how do we actually understand what's happening within ecosystems with biodiversity? It's a really challenging question and something that we don't have a great standardized way to do yet. So Rainforest Connection and our biodiversity monitoring arm, RBMON, focuses on sound. So sound is a really incredible way to understand what's happening with fauna within different ecosystems. For frogs, birds, bats, mammals, insects are all communicating using sound. So we've created a platform, and you have a hardware and software solution to essentially monitor biodiversity at scale using acoustics. So what we do is we collect data from the field using offline and online sensors. We can train partners on the ground. We have data from over 114 countries. We can train partners on the ground on how to collect the data, upload it into the platform, and then we can look at ecosystem health from a species-specific and soundscape level to understand how individual species presence is shifting over time, but then also how is the soundscape as a whole changing over time, which gives us a really good indicator of biodiversity health and ecosystem health by proxy.
So that's ecoacoustic sound. Louis, talk about CyberTracker.
Yeah, so basically what we're developing a software service that enables non-technical people to customize a data capture solution that non-literate expert indigenous trackers can use to capture very complex biodiversity data, but equally important socioeconomic data.
Yeah, it's very interesting. When I met Louis, he talked to me about hunting a lot. You know, indigenous people need to do hunting. And me as an animal lover, I was like, okay, how do I get this into my brain? But eventually, there's a good and a bad hunting, and there's sustainable hunting, and indigenous are actually the best stewards for nature, historically, forever, right? And so we have sound collected, and we have app collected data. The fascinating thing is, CyberTracker is a 28-year-old operation. They were collecting already data through Palm pilots. Now, we know all these biodiversity movements, and whenever I meet any one of those posh people, I always ask, did you call Louis? He really knows about biodiversity data. And then they look at me always very shocked. But we forget the tools. Now, Chrissy, there are other ways to collect biodiversity data. There's camera traps. Google has Google Earth Engine, trail guards. There are a lot of nature metrics, environmental DNA. Why, for God's sake, don't we have a biodiversity data platform in the world? Isn't IUCN supposed to do exactly this? They canceled their speaking on both main stage and project stage, quoting that the CBD COP in Montreal would take their time. But why don't we have a platform like this? And who's building it?
I think that's a great question, and I don't think there's a good answer to it yet. So that's why I'm super excited about the Data Alliance, because we don't have standardized ways to measure biodiversity, and we have all of these really incredible tools. I mean, you combine ground truth data with ecoacoustics, with eDNA, with camera trap data. We can paint a really holistic picture of what's happening, but aligning those data types and bringing all of that together is still kind of the missing piece there. So that's why we're super excited to be working on these projects together.
Yeah, and it's important that you know that both Louis and Chrissy are going to present the full 10 minutes today and tomorrow. So you have a sneak preview into what they're going to speak about. But what Louis was saying, it doesn't stop with biodiversity. If you don't provide the person who collects the data with energy and food and a livelihood, and maybe a little bit of fun, let's not forget about that, the ultimate satisfaction of seeing the data in a map, we don't even need to attempt biodiversity protection. So I found those two solutions in the world, and I thought they need to work together. And then they got more and more, and now we have a group of 100. Thank you, Chrissy. Thank you, Louis.
Thank you, Mark.
Now, my journey started in Suriname, believe it or not, where I met John Goedschalk, I don't know, something like that. It's a Dutch colony, former colony. But this gentleman, who has been helped by Brainforest to come up with an amazing idea, a venture builder, a venture idea, This gentleman is what the world needs. Climate entrepreneurs, the people who know how to get capital, tell a story and pitch. Maybe I give my ticker over to you, John, and you put actions in my words.
Okay.
Stand up.
Yeah, thank you, Leo. Thank you, Marco. But I think Leo's going to introduce us first, and then I'll join right after. We have some slides, right?
Not yet. Yeah, sure. So Brainforest, a venture builder for forest and climate. So we look at wicked problems, and unfortunately Suriname has a few of those. We create solutions, and then when they are ready to be incorporated, we create impact ventures. Now, we leverage technologies for that, and it's fantastic that we have the Data Alliance now, because lots of technology is in there that we can leverage. It's not only technology, also indigenous and local wisdom that we take, and then of course it needs the entrepreneurs to actually make it happen. That's what we do at Brainforest. We have incorporated 2 ventures so far. They are present here, actually. Silva will talk in a few minutes. And we are here about action, not about talking, and about impact investments that we need to actually scale the solutions. So we actually, this afternoon, we will talk at 4 in the Impact Investor Lounge about what's going wrong in impact investment, because that's eventually what we need to scale it, to have real impact investments. And now on the solution side, with all the technology that we have, we really need to implement scalable solutions. And in Suriname, we're working on this fantastic approach with partners. And unfortunately, the founder of Polygon, Anthony, cannot be here because he's in bed with COVID. But it's the technology players that we need to bring together with the local indigenous wisdom, with the entrepreneurs, and the technology that we have in the Data Alliance. So this combination will make that it's actually magic that happens, meaning that we can really create solutions at scale. But enough of that, so over to John on Suriname.
Absolutely. Thank you, Leo. All right, so I've heard a lot of talk about how donations get made to NGOs and how we need all this impact. And I'm here to tell you, after doing this work for about a decade on the ground, in the forests, leading Conservation International in Suriname, I can tell you a lot of energy, a lot of time is lost with data reporting. A lot of time is lost getting the data. And that's why we need the Data Alliance. And we are going to pilot a minimum viable product, so to speak, in Suriname by combining some of these key data sources, like open forests, which you'll be able to see later at the project stage, which brings together different data layers. Cadasta, that helps the indigenous communities do their mapping of their lands digitally and be able to communicate their intent and their traditional structures of how to manage the land. We'll be working with Rainforest Connection, implementing audio mods to be able to ensure biodiversity is there, working with TerraPulse to calculate the different soil masses, CyberTracker with Louis, making sure that the communities have their role in actually doing the monitoring and registering wildlife, registering fauna, all of these different elements. Globi, in order to be able to zoom in really deeply when we see disturbances. And of course, Flint Pro, which will help us to actually do the carbon measurements as well. So all of this comes together in order to systematize and also bring transparency to potential investors and donors. So we don't have different language challenges. When I say this is the biodiversity data, everybody understands it because they can hear it using the Rainforest Connect. They can see it using either some of the Globi images or the CyberTracker registration. So this is the type of system we need if we want to make sure that we can communicate our impacts on the ground and not be stuck wasting 30% of our time figuring out how to communicate that impact on the ground. So the Data Alliance brings transparency, it brings trust, and thereby brings acceleration. Thank you.